and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 404, and today's date is July 1st, 2014, and the title of this episode is U.S. Concerned ISIL and al-Qaeda Planning Attack by Aircraft. This is a false flag alert, and you can see by everything that they've been doing is they've been pushing this propaganda non-stop to instill fear in the American people, in the people of England and Europe, that these people are going to be attacking any minute. And they're doing this on purpose because they need to get this war started. They need a special event to show we have to invade Syria, Iraq, and of course we know who's on the other side waiting: Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and many other countries. So we can see already they've been planning this. All military assets have been placed all around the world. We have the pivot to Asia, where we have missile bases encircling China. 60% of the fleet, of the U.S. fleet, is in China. We see Eastern Europe is building up. NATO is building up all the military assets, pretty much encircling Russia right now, setting up missile shields where they do believe that these shields will be able to stop their nuclear missiles flying off to the United States. And we can see they have been pushing and provoking all of these countries because they know they need to get something started. And what's really interesting right now is just in the last couple of weeks, they have really been pushing the recovery. I mean, Obama was out there pushing how we're recovering, and he went through all the different financial instances of where we are improving. He's talked about real estate, he talked about unemployment, he talked about manufacturing, he talked about pretty much everything, just to let us know that everything is recovering. We are in a complete recovery. We have the Fed out there continually tapering, bringing down the quantitative easing that they've been doing, about $10 billion each time. But we know that they've been using Belgium as a proxy to purchase treasury bonds and other countries to purchase treasury bonds, and we can see there is no such thing as tapering. It is a complete illusion. But what's happening is the manipulated numbers, the unemployment, the GDP, the inflation, manufacturing, the real estate numbers, they are starting to separate, and we're seeing what's really going on in the economies and what has been manufactured to keep this illusion alive. And they realize this, so they're really pushing this agenda very hard that we're in a recovery. And the last time we saw this was back in August of 2013 when they were creating that false flag event with Syria, that they used chemical weapons. Obama was on tour. He was out in Phoenix. This time he was in, where was it, Minnesota, telling us and telling everyone that we're in this incredible recovery. At the same time, during that period, the Fed was going to start to taper, but they backed off because the event didn't go live. Here we are right now. They started the taper because they really wanted everyone to realize that we are in a recovery, and they were able to shift their purchases to other places to really make it look like they are really tapering when they really aren't. They have already purchased billions, I should say trillions dollars worth of real estate. We have to understand now that central banks own the hard assets of the United States. The people no longer hold those hard assets. And this is exactly what the central banks do. They come into countries, they print up a lot of money, they hand it out, they put everyone into debt, and they come in and they suck the country dry by taking all the hard assets, because that is what is worth something. The paper and ink is worth absolutely nothing. And we can see the dollar is completely collapsing. And already around the world, countries are getting very nervous, and they're making plans for when the U.S. dollar completely collapses. And we're seeing this all around the world. I mean, China has been making deals with many, many countries to deal in the renminbi and yuan and completely bypass the dollar. Russia is doing it. They're creating their own national payment system. And we can see many other countries are saying, you know what, just in case, we better make sure that we have an alternate plan. And this is what all these countries and central banks are doing, because they pretty much realize the country is in a huge amount of debt. It cannot be sustained. They see the United States going around starting skirmishes and wars all around the globe. There's flashpoints all over the place, and they can see the writing is on the wall. They are getting ready for the main event. And already we had reports of this new malware that's sitting on many organizations, many paragrid systems, ready to be used to shut down the electrical systems. And we know this is coming. We know it's just a matter of time, and we are on our way. Let's get into the economic collapse news, and let's go out to Bulgaria. And we have to remember, Bulgaria, the banks were pretty much insolvent. People were coming up. They wanted their money out. And of course they said, whoa, 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 don't worry. Don't take your money out. We don't want bank runs here. So right now what has happened is that Bulgaria is receiving a extended credit line of $3.3 billion in support of the banks that have come under speculative attacks. Now, what's very interesting, every time a bank is insolvent, or we're coming off the gold standard, or we're doing something that is completely imploding the system, the central bankers always call it because of these speculative people. No, it has nothing to do with the speculative people. It has to do with their policies and how they ran the system into the ground. This is the problem. Now, if we look out in Europe, we see that there is absolutely no improvement. Of course, last year during the false flag event in August, September, France, Spain, Italy, they were all out there, and the European Union were all out there telling us we're in a recovery. They see improvements. Everything is getting better. And the 18-country Eurozone is still unable to create enough jobs to make a significant dent in the unemployment rate. Well, of course, they have a huge amount of debt. They're laying off more and more people with austerity. They're cutting programs. Businesses can't make it, and the countries are suffering. It's not going to get better. Economists said the lack of any real improvement is troubling. Tuesday's report showed youth unemployment in particular remains a grave problem at 23.3% across the Eurozone. It is at crisis levels in Southern Europe, with both Spain and Greece showing unemployment rates for people under age of 25 at over 50%. Well, yeah. This cannot just get better by itself. You can't throw more and more debt on a country and expect the country just to spring back and everything be okay. It doesn't work that way. As they continually push the austerity on the people, less and less people have work. Businesses can't make it. They close down. People don't have disposable income, so they stop purchasing. And all of a sudden, the government finds themselves in need of more money. This happens to every single person in their households. You know how it works. You're working at a job, making $50,000 a year. You continually purchase, and then you start saying, uh-oh, we have so much debt, it cannot be sustained. So what do? You go out and you get another credit card to pay off that other credit card, and now you're even in more debt. Yes, it helps for a small time period, but then it catches up with you, and here you are again. Of course, most people don't want to cut anything to say, okay, we'll stop going out to dinner, we won't have cable, and even if they do, they still need more debt. So it's an ongoing thing, and before you know it, the household has to declare bankruptcy, just like the countries. And some countries get there a little bit faster than others, but we all end up in the same exact place because this debt, when you continually take it on and you do not have the revenue to keep up with it, it cannot be sustained. Now, of course, Spain is out there and they're saying, this is the end of the recession, everything is great. And it's just amazing how we're seeing this huge buildup to convince everyone we're in this recovery. And this is how you know something big is about to happen. Spain unemployment remained unchanged in May at 25.1%. Well, that's a fantastic recovery. But the youth unemployment actually risen to 54%. This is the highest since January. Remember, the youth are the foundation of the countries. Greece, Cyprus, Italy, Spain, France, very, very high youth unemployment. Yes, the United States, same exact way. This is the foundation where the youth of America and other countries, they get jobs, they save their money, they go out and they use their disposable income, they save up for a house, a car, and they continually spend, and this is the next generation. And what we're seeing right now is that there is no next generation. Now, here in the United States, of course, they're keeping the illusion alive any way they possibly can. All I see is how everything is recovering, rebounding, and we saw this last summer right before that big, huge false flag event. And we're seeing the same thing happen right now. They're telling us auto sales are incredible. Of course, most of that went to the government. And what we're seeing right now is that the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency explains, across the industry, auto lenders are pursuing growth by lengthening terms, increasing advance rates, and originating loans to borrowers with lower credit scores. Yes, they're tapping into the subprime people. They're giving auto loans not for 60 months, not for 72 months, for 84 months. Average loan-to-value rates above 100%. Risk in auto lending is beginning to emerge. Subprime auto loans were up tenfold in 2013. The same thing's happening in housing. This is at the end game, when they use anything they possibly can to suck people in to purchase cars, to purchase homes, even though even if they're not qualified to do that. They don't care at this point. They need the bodies. They need the people to take out the loans to keep the system going. And we see this with real estate. We see it with the auto industry. Retail is decimated. We see thousands upon thousands of stores closing because they pretty much can't do anything there, because you really have to use your credit card or cash to purchase something, and people are just tapped out in that area. But here are some signs that the global economic crisis is accelerating as we enter further into 2014. The Bank of International Settlement has issued a new report which warns that dangerous new asset bubbles are forming, which would potentially lead to another major financial crisis. Last month, household loans in the Eurozone declined in the fastest rate ever recorded. Why are European banks holding on to their money so tightly right now? Well, they're nervous, they're afraid, and they don't want to give this money out to the people because they know we are headed for an implosion. The number of unemployed job seekers in France has just soared to another brand new record high. Were they coming out of a recession? I guess not. Economies all over Europe are either showing no growth or are shrinking. U.S. companies are drowning in massive amounts of debts. 67.5% of the people that are unemployed in Greece have been unemployed for over a year. They're not going to get a job. This is what we see here in the United States. If you're out of work for more than 6 months to a year, you can forget it. Employers are not even going to look at you anymore. The European Central Bank is so desperate to get money moving through the system that it has actually introduced negative interest rates. Now, why would you keep your money in the bank if you're getting negative interest rates? Listen, if you're getting no interest or negative interest, you might as well take that paper and ink and turn it into precious metals. The economic conflict between the United States and Russia continues to deepen. This has caused Russia to make a series of moves away from the U.S. dollar. China away from the U.S. dollar. Other countries are moving away from the U.S. dollar. In 2000, 55% of the countries and central banks held the reserve in their held the United States dollar in their reserves. Today, the beginning of this year, it was down to 33%. By the end of this year, it's going to be around 20 to 25% or worse. We are heading for a major collapse. And as we know, the first quarter GDP, as they kept revising it, was revised down to a negative 2.9%, and this is just awful. And this is with the manipulated GDP. When they redid the calculation where they included research and development and went back to 1929, recalculated it all the way through to the present, and they still can't keep it in the positive range. This tells you that we are headed for something really, really horrific. Now, like I said, countries are taking precautions because they're realizing the U.S. dollar is imploding. Now, Kuwait right now is looking to sell their oil in bitcoins. Can anyone see an invasion happening here in Kuwait? The central bankers are not going to be happy with this. They're going to allow their oil to be sold not using the U.S. dollar. This will not be allowed. Now, Russia created a law starting July 1st, and what it means right now is that Visa and MasterCard can no longer block Russian clients. It is part of a legislation for a national payment system and ensures electronic payments and protects Russians from being blocked. And of course, they did this because of these sanctions that were placed on Russian individuals and businesses. So they decided to create a law where Visa and MasterCard can't step away and block the payments. The new national payment system should be up and running in 18 months inside Russia. Visa has made a move to continue its operations in Russia, home to more than 140 million consumers. Now you know why they changed their mind and said, no, we'll do business with you, because they would have lost 140 million consumers. It's just an astronomical amount of money that they're making off of Russia. And this is why they backed off, and this is why they're making deals with Russia, saying, whoa, we'll put the payment system, the servers inside your country. Yes, we won't block you. They'll be apolitical. We'll have nothing to do with politics again. Please use us, keep us. And this is what's going on. Now, it looks like Luxembourg and Paris, they are going to pretty much become the center for yuan transactions. They are setting up clearing banks in both of these places. So you can see China is doing this everywhere. UK, we see it in Kenya. Now we see it in Paris, in Luxembourg. We see bilateral trade agreements with Australia, New Zealand, Russia, North Korea, Iran, Syria, UK, Brazil, Argentina. We're seeing it all over the place, but Canada, Switzerland, where are we not seeing it? Here in the United States. Now, we know these central bankers, the U.S. government, the elite, the globalists, whatever you like to call them, we know what they're trying to do. They're trying to create, of course, a one world government type of system. They don't want people to have rights. They're trying to dumb them down to make them good workers, and they don't want you thinking of new things. They don't want you to have an imagination. They don't want you to be creative. They just want good workers and with no rights. And this is why they introduced Common Core into the school systems here in the United States. And what's been happening is there is a backlash now. People are starting to catch on, and they're starting to realize, hey, this is not good for the students. Actually, this is dumbing them down. This is awful. And the latest nationwide public opinion data on national standards released by Rasmussen Reports on June 26 represents another devastating blow to Common Core proponents. Despite pouring billions of dollars in taxpayer and special interest funding into deceptive marketing gimmicks and propaganda to build support for Obama's education reform schemes, opposition to Common Core continues to surge as awareness spreads. In recent months, for example, 4 states that accepted bribes from Obama to impose Common Core, Oklahoma, Louisiana, South Carolina, and Indiana, have officially rejected the scheme. Such states as Texas, Alaska, and Virginia never imposed Common Core at all, and dozens of others are working to kill the scheme. Numerous states have also withdrawn from the federally funded test, which experts say is crucial to the whole plot. As awareness about the dangers of Common Core spreads, reduced critical thinking skills, loss of local and state control over education, poor quality standards, massive cost to taxpayers, federal intrusion in the classroom, a widely lambasted federal-funded testing regime, the Orwellian data mining component, and the dumbing down of our children, and more, opposition will continue to grow, and it will. As more and more people see what this is and it's implemented in their schools, they're going to start to realize, hey, what are my children learning here? And the people will rise up and say, no, we are not going to have this. And it's already started, and they will not be able to stop it. Now, as we know, Obamacare, the website, the entire system is a complete mess. But President Obama is going to use this to his benefit, because what's happening is the Health and Human Services Offices of the Inspector General issued a report today stating that internal controls for evaluating Obamacare exchanges applications were not always effective at verifying people's Social Security numbers, citizenship, and eligibility to buy health insurance through federal and state exchanges. They are going to use this because they can't tell who is a citizen of the United States and who is an illegal immigrant. They're going to use this to their benefit. They're going to say, hey, look, we just had an influx of 1.7 million people sign up to Obamacare, and you know where this is going to come from. This is going to come from all the children that are coming up and the parents that are coming up, where Obama's giving them work permits. You can see how they are playing this. They are playing this to prop up the system, to prop up Obamacare, to prop up everything. But these people are not going to be paying in. They'll be getting subsidies from the government because they're not making enough money. This cannot be sustained. This is an illusion. Everything will implode. Okay, now as we know, Japan has been trying to change Article 9. They don't want to be a pacifist nation anymore, and they want to go out and protect their allies when needed. And right now, Japan's cabinet has approved a landmark change in security policy, easing constitutional constraints that have kept its military forces from fighting overseas since World War II. The cabinet endorsed a reinterpretation of the country's constitution that will now allow the military to help defend allies and others in close relationship with Japan under what is known as collective self-defense. And we have to understand, Japan has created the first warships since World War II, and now they're setting up missile silos all across the island facing towards China, and this is part of the encircling of China. And we can see, and I've said this, if you go back to my reports from last year, all of this has been set up for World War III. They know exactly what's going on. They know exactly what they're going to do. And when I say they, I'm talking about the central bankers, U.S. government. They know exactly what they're doing, and they understand to get out of this entire complete collapse of the system, they will need to start war and blame it on other countries, because in their minds they do believe when everything's said and done and they emerge from their bunkers, they're going to start this all over again, especially with Common Core, which they'd like to have every state be involved with. They would like to get rid of the Constitution. They would love to disarm the people, and this has been their goal from the beginning. Now, out in Ukraine, we understand that Ukraine said they were going to do a reverse gas flow from Europe, and Putin is out there, and he says that Ukraine's plan with its European partners on reverse gas flows doesn't exist. They can't do it. How can it be possible to supply the gas on the same pipe to one side and another? We know that there is no reverse gas flow. There is no need to be a specialist to understand this, and this is what Putin is saying. It's an artificial reverse flow. In fact, there is no reverse. The Russian leader is certain that the Ukraine has concocted a plan with its Western partners by paying for gas European customers do not receive. And of course, they're trying to figure out a way to help and fund Ukraine and Europe with gas. So if gas is shut off, which they would like to do and impose sanctions where they can say, go ahead, shut the gas off. We're having them supplied by another alternate method. But right now they can't figure out a way to do this because there is no way. Now we know in Ukraine the ceasefire is over. Well, that didn't last too long. I guess there is no peace. World War III is a go. And of course Poroshenko is out there. He's saying that we will attack and we will free our land. We will destroy each and every one of them. Now we can see right now that there is no peace there. They need to get the production area of the southeastern section of Ukraine. They're not going to stop. They're going to continue with their mission. And this whole ceasefire was an illusion to make everyone believe that the new president was looking for peace. And of course, his ultimatum doesn't show that he really wants peace, because he really didn't want to talk about it. He gave everyone an ultimatum. And now they're pushing the anti-terrorism forces to get those terrorists, which are the Ukrainian people. Of course, they can't call them al-Qaeda because that would look ridiculous. So they just call them everyday terrorists. And they're going to push and push into these regions. And of course, the soldiers in Ukraine are looking at the government saying, listen, we haven't gotten paid, we have no food, this is absolutely ridiculous, and we're seeing more and more of the soldiers desert and not be a part of the military. But don't worry, they have the paid mercenaries and other people inside of Ukraine pushing the agenda forward. Now, NATO chief is going to move forces from U.S. to Europe. NATO's top military commander said Monday that American troops from the United States will be dispatched to Europe starting in October to help respond to Russian aggression in Ukraine. Really? What has Russia done? Actually, they revoked the law that they had on the books where it allowed them to invade Ukraine. The parliament revoked it. And what exactly has Russia done? There's no troop buildups. There's no troops inside Ukraine. Who has been using all the aggression? Ah, that's right. The puppet regime in Ukraine. And of course, the NATO commanders out there, it's a very momentous time in Europe, probably the most since the end of the Cold War, especially because of the recent changes wrought by Russia. Breedlove told reporters at the Pentagon they're ready to move and surround Russia, bringing in the U.S. troops, bringing in more military assets, and they're continually propping this up because they realize eventually the United States government with NATO will go to war with Russia to cover up this entire collapse. Now, Libya, as we know, is completely tumbling towards a civil war. The different tribes within Libya are rising up, pushing the government back, and it seems like they have more oil fields, more refineries, and the government is losing control. And the U.S. is saying that we cannot help in this area right now. We're too busy in Iraq creating another false flag, so Libya is left on its own. But eventually what's going to happen, they will come into the fold, and they know this, and they realize that all the fighting will be in the Middle East, it will be in Russia, it will be in Europe, and we can see that this is really ramping up right now. Now, we understand that Maliki has made a deal with Russia. Russia is now backing Maliki, just like Russia backed Assad. They're receiving the Su-25 fighter jets, and right now the Russian pilots are going to be in Iraq putting together, but they said they're absolutely not going to be flying these jets and flying them and hitting the ISIL and the Sunni uprising going on. It is absolutely prohibited, and this is coming from Russia saying they're absolutely not going to have any Russian pilots in the air whatsoever. It will be Iraqi pilots who are flying these planes. But of course, the U.S. is going to come out there saying that the Russians now have gotten involved in Iraq. The United States needs to get involved, and you can see that propaganda being formulated right now. Now, it looks like the Kurds, they want to be independent of Iraq, the northern part of Iraq, just like Crimea had a referendum. And, of course, the United States, the central bankers, the EU, all up in arms saying that you can't do that. It's going to ruin the territory of the Ukraine. You just can't do that. But, of course, you don't hear anything from the central bankers of the United States government because this is exactly what they want. Iraq's Kurds will hold an independence referendum within months, their leader Masoud Barzani said. Barzani said the time was right for a vote as Iraq was already effectively partitioned following the lightning gains by the ISIL or the Islamic State, plus the Sunni people who are uprising and the different tribes. So they're looking to separate themselves. And of course, there are sources coming out of this area, and they want to stay anonymous, and they're using propaganda now saying that the Islamic State, they have advanced U.S.-made weapons to arm 200,000 soldiers. I think they're just exaggerating a little bit, but they're using this right now to show that, wow, the United States really needs to get in there. They're going to be taking over Syria. We need to go after these terrorists, and we need to be very, very afraid because they're looking to bomb the United States, to bomb the UK, to bomb Europe. Now, a retired U.S. Army general who has deployed to Iraq 3 times has warned against immediate U.S. airstrikes against the militants from the so-called Islamic State of Iraq and Levant. Retired Lieutenant General Michael Barbaro, who spent more than 46 months in Iraq, says U.S. airstrikes in Iraq would be relatively ineffective in beating back these insurgents, the terrorist group, and the people and the tribes. It just won't work. And we pretty much know this, that airstrikes are going to do nothing and that you really do need boots on the ground. And this is why they're starting to formulate a plan to create an event which will say this group attacked the United States, which will allow the president to go ahead and use the War Powers Act and say we will now invade Iraq and move into Syria, because Syria is the heart of terrorism, and that's where they'll be headed. Now, of course, Obama lied. He is sending in 300 additional troops into Iraq. The United States sends up to an additional 300 troops into Iraq, detachment of helicopters and drone aircraft. President Barack Obama says he's sending about 200 more U.S. troops to Iraq to protect Americans in the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. So right now we have a total of 800 soldiers on the ground. We have boots on the ground. And Obama says the additions include security forces, rotary wing aircraft, and support for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. We know there are thousands and thousands of troops standing by all around Iraq and in the Persian Gulf. We understand the USS Bataan has been diverted over to the Iraq area, where it holds thousands of Marines. So we can see this is being built up, and of course we know we have soldiers in Jordan. And again, if you remember, there was an exercise in Jordan where they had a lot of military assets, they had a lot of soldiers there, and they were training these paid mercenaries in secret bases. So everything has been set up for what is coming. Now, the leader of the ISIS or ISIL group has called for Muslims to come to the newly declared Islamic State, vowing revenge for wrongs committed against fellow Muslims. Rush, because Syria is not for the Syrians and Iraq is not for the Iraqis, al-Baghdadi said. Muslims everywhere, whoever is capable of performing immigration to the Islamic State, then let them do so, because immigration to the land of Islam is obligatory. So he is pushing this, and of course this is all being backed by the United States central bankers, because they want to have the ability to get into Syria and to remove Assad. This has been the plan, and eventually they're going to move right into Iran. They are making the case, and this is exactly what they'll be doing. Now, right now, they are building this false flag event up. I mean, it's just coming out of all ends of the corporate media. They are not letting up on this, because they want every single American and European and Britain to understand that we are going to be hit with something very, very major. Richard Engel, the counterterrorism officials, call threat from ISIS extremely high. Several counterterrorism officials tell NBC News the threat from ISIS to American interest is extremely high. They say ISIS is developing advanced bomb making and cultivating a roster of foreign suicide bombers who could target the U.S. and Europe, and they're bragging about it. And they're talking about making bombs that cannot be detected, high-tech bombs. And of course, they're going to be using them here in the United States and in Europe and in the UK. Now, Western security officials are worried that al-Qaeda, the old al-Qaeda, not the new al-Qaeda, which they're labeling the Islamic State, which was ISIL, the old al-Qaeda may feel the need to compete with the new al-Qaeda for funding and recruits. And what are they going to do? Well, the al-Qaeda might want to reclaim some semblance of legitimacy. It will desperately pursue a major strike here in the United States to do that. Washington-based intelligence insider said the most disturbing part of the al-Qaeda threat is that its reorganized Syria affiliate, al-Nusra, and its Yemeni franchise, al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, are now coordinating with each other. Now they're bringing in Yemen, they're bringing in all the different regions to make it look like all the al-Qaedas, the old al-Qaedas, are coming together to hit and strike the United States. This will make it easier for the United States and the government officials to say, well, al-Qaeda, the new and the old, just struck the United States. They hit Europe, they hit England, and they are coming from all of these regions. So we need to go into every single one of these regions and take it over and bring the troops in, boots on the ground, aircraft, and they are definitely setting this up. And they're going to blame this attack for creating this economic disaster here in the United States. Now, passengers are going to face airport delays in the airports. Why? Because concerns of a plot are underway to attack European or U.S.-bound aircraft. Security crackdown could cause travel disruptions and airport chaos. The intelligence has revealed the groups are developing new covert weapons as well as recruiting willing plot members from the large number of foreigners currently fighting in the region. The U.S. is considering a crackdown on airport security after new intelligence was received with concerns there could be a new generation of bomb-making technology underway. U.S. analysis believed a section of extreme terrorism in Syria were planning to attack the U.S. and Europe-bound planes. So here we are again. Now we have to remember they're continually keeping the Malaysian flight in the news. They haven't stopped. And the latest report on the corporate media, they are telling us that now they believe the plane was hijacked, but they don't know by who. And they have some scenarios that they're going through. So I can see right now what is going to happen. They're going to use this plane. They're going to say it was either the old al-Qaeda, the new al-Qaeda. They flew it here to the United States with some type of dirty nuke or some type of high-tech explosive or chemical weapons that came, or biological, that came out of Syria, and they will explode it here in the United States. At the same time, there'll be physical attacks on the power grid, a cyber attack on the power grid from Russia, and we can see this hitting many, many different cities. Some cities will be completely blacked out. The people of the United States and in Europe will be very, very scared and nervous. We will see explosions go off in different embassies all around these areas, because you have to remember the United States shipped off explosives to all of these areas. And you can see how this is building up. We also have stolen medical radioactive material that is missing. They don't know where it is, and you can see they can use this for a dirty bomb. So all of this is now starting to come together. They are planning for something very big. They're hitting us with recovery. They're hitting us with terrorism, and all we know is that the economic situation is completely falling apart. They realize they can't sustain this any longer, and this is why all of this is starting to happen right now. And every single person needs to be prepared. Everyone needs to go out and purchase that water, that extra food, that extra medicine, a weapon to protect your family, batteries, candles, toiletries, you name it, you're going to need it. And you've got to make sure that you have enough for at least 6 months. Because if it's your city that is blacked out, you're going to be blacked out for a couple of weeks or longer. And people are going to be shocked. They're not going to realize what's happening. People are going to lose jobs. People won't be able to afford groceries. Actually, they'll go into the grocery stores, raid the shelves, and there'll be nothing left there. You don't want to be caught outside doing any of this when all this is going down. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.